Original gangster.
Ten years ago, I used to listen to rappers flow, talking about the way they rock the mic at the disco. I liked how that shit was going down. Dreamt about ripping the mic with my own sound. So I tried to write rhymes something like them. My boy said, that ain't you, Ike, that shit sounds like him. So I sat back, thought up a new track, didn't fantasize, kicked the pure facts. Motherfuckers got scared cause they was unprepared. Who would tell it how it really was, who dared? A motherfucker from the west coast, LA, South Central, fool, where the Crips and the Bloods play. When I wrote about parties, it didn't fit. That was the real shit.
OG. Original gangster. OG. Original gangster. OG. Original gangster. OG. Original gangster. OG.
Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 344 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about how DOGE, government efficiency, is not a new thing. I put the OG in DOGE back in the day, and I'm definitely not an Elon hater. I know I I dragged him in my retweet yesterday. Uh, you know, trying to get the U.S. military involved in uh, war on drugs / war on terrorism, and but this isn't about that. Uh, I'm definitely a big Elon fan. Huge Elon D rider. And before I got hooked on MicroStrategy, I basically had come to the conclusion that Tesla was going to be the most valuable company on earth, within 10-15 years or whatnot. I think it's going to be MicroStrategy and Tesla 1 and 2. I don't know which one's going to be number 1 and which one's going to be number 2. Probably depends on what part of the Bitcoin cycle we're in, if the 4-year cycles continue. So my prediction is probably, let's just say 2029, MicroStrategy number 1, Tesla number 2, and they can just battle back and forth for the next 10, 20 years. They can be the Mag 2. But I was on the USS Seattle uh, back in the day, and actually, before I get into that, so just in case anybody thinks that my love for Elon is not true, like, you basically hate Elon compared to how much I love him, and I've got some audio from back in the day talking about him, and if my voice sounds a little high, it's just my voice hadn't dropped yet at that point, so here it goes.
I can deduce that he is the epitome of anti-disestablishment terrorism, who embodies the entire spectrum of the urban experience and struggle. But to make things more plain and simple to the layman, I find Ice-T to be the dopest, flyest, OG pimp, hustler, gangster player, hardcore motherfucker living today. To be honest, I am totally and completely on his dick.
If it sounded like I said Ice-T, it was really Elon. Like, that's my pet name for Elon back, way back. I used to just call him Ice-T. Just that's how me and him were kind of tight like that. So, um, definitely love what Elon is doing with Tesla and all of the other companies. But yeah, Doge is nothing new. And so when I was on the Seattle, the damn thing was commissioned in like 1969, and I was on it in 99/2000. And I was a lab tech, but you never just have one job in the Navy, so they put me in charge of the supplies as well. And I don't know if anybody knows how ordering government supplies works, but there's a really convoluted process. And so I would order like reagents for the laboratory, and because mine were expired or close to expiring, and it would take so many months for my supplies to get there, they would be expired when they arrived. And so then it would just be this endless cycle of trying to replace things that were already expired, and they would they might just arrive expired. Um, and that's even like onshore import. But imagine trying to get supplies delivered to the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it's not an easy thing. But one of the things that you do before you go on a deployment is you have to have like, my job was to go through a deployment readiness checklist, and I went through the supply closet and counted up all of our meds and all of the stuff that we were going to need. You have to have like anti-malarial drugs and stuff. And I took a look, and I swear to God, it looked like the stockpile of our anti-malarials were from when the ship was commissioned in '69, and this was 30 years later. And I'm like, people some people don't actually know that those drugs were probably actually fine, even though they were expired for 2 decades. Um, Depending on the drug, you can actually get permission to extend the expiration date, so we probably just were kinda grandfathered in on that crap. But it was a little bit of an eye-opening experience, and I compiled a list. Like, our annual budget, I think, for all of medical on that ship was, like, $12,000 or something stupid, which is, like, 3,000 a quarter. Probably cost us that much for the, um, the few ladies that we had on the ship, just to cover their birth control meds. Probably we could probably spend that much. So it's kinda ridiculous. But, I went through and I'm like, "We need, like, an extra 30 grand to even be ready for deployment." And I wrote it up in such a way that you kind of can't ignore it, because if we don't sign off that we're medically, like, ready to deploy, then the ship doesn't deploy, and that's bad for certain people's careers. So, they will move mountains if if you threaten to not be seaworthy when it's time to deploy. And so they caved, and they gave us a bunch of money. And of course, when you get your budget increased, what's the first thing that people do? They start wanting to waste fucking money. And my boss, the first class, she's like, she wanted this new frickin' medical record, a filing cabinet for our medical records. And I swear to God, that medical record cabinet that we were using was probably on the ship since 1969 as well. Our gurney was stainless steel from from back in the day. Um, and so, she wanted me to replace this damn filing cabinet. I don't know, it was 300 bucks, 500 bucks or whatnot. And I just kept, every time she'd say, "Oh, hey, did the filing cabinet come in? Is it supply department said anything about it?" I'd just be like, "Oh, I don't know. Still not in, still not in." 6 months later, she's still kind of like complaining, and I'm just throwing my hands up. I'm like, "I don't know." You know how supplies are. And after she was complaining one day and left the room, my buddy was like, "Did you order that filing cabinet?" And I was like, "Hell no, I didn't order that shit. There ain't no way I was replacing, uh, this damn filing cabinet just so she could have a nice shiny piece of fucking metal." And the one that we had was, I mean, it was all dilapidated and, noisy as shit when you try to open the drawers, and half of them were all cattywampus. And, but it doesn't matter. It's just a freaking box of metal to hold your medical records in. And so, that's my claim to fame. I saved the US government 350 bucks in 1999. And, so what if DOGE is gonna save $100 million? It's like, too little, too late, buddy. So that's my claim to fame, and, I'm kind of excited that we will we will be eliminating some fraud, waste, and abuse, at a meaningful level. Hopefully, they can put the AI tools to work for the forces of good. Um, but even though I'm excited about that, I I can't get on board with his opinions on putting the U.S. military to work for for things that we are ill suited for. The company's already broke. Like, he's in charge of DOGE, government efficiency, and how efficient have any of the wars, the war on drugs or any of these foreign wars, you could, Iraq war, Afghanistan. There's like a half dozen wars that motherfuckers have never even heard of, that don't even know that we were fighting wars over the last 20 years. If you listen to Dave Smith, he gives a good account of a lot of that stuff. It's kind of a shame that you have to get accurate political information from a stand-up comedian, but that is the world that we live in. So, I appreciate what my boy Elon is doing, but he can kindly shut the fuck up talking about things that he really doesn't understand. Um, yeah, I can't imagine being in charge of government efficiency and then thinking some of the most costly endeavors, like the war on drugs and the war on terror, should be repeated and then supercharged by combining them into one thing. So, didn't even mean to talk about that, but I ruffled a few feathers with my retweet yesterday, so it's kind of been on my mind. All right. That is the rants. Rants over. Let's see if there's anybody's calling me an asshole in the chat. Good morning, David. Kevin says popping caps from my gat. Hell yes. Let's fucking go. Peter says finally catching you live. What's up? What's up back? Howard says, haha, you and Elon. Yeah, I was the original Doge czar back in the day. What's up, dude face? All right, so do have some actual trading to do. That page right there that I just exited was actually me opting into DRIP, dividend reinvestment, whatever the hell it's called. And that's because of the MSTY challenge. So I shouldn't have to, let me make this a little smaller. Whoops. Let me get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. So the ex-dividend date is going to be February, mid-February-ish. And so if I think this is going to work the way that I think it does, I won't have to manually go in here and buy more shares. With the dividends, I think they're going to automatically be reinvested. I'm still going to have to double check because since Misty doesn't really pay a true dividend, I don't know if it's going to qualify. But hopefully it'll just save me a step and I won't have to deal with this. It'll just reinvest all of my MSTY dividends payments into more shares of Misty. And that way, MSTY strategy can kind of like be traded optimally. So nobody can accuse me of like trying to trade Misty in a suboptimal way so that I can, get a leg up in the competition. So that'll be cool. That's one less thing for me to have to pay attention to as well, if that actually works automatically. But as far as trades for the day, I said that I wanted to take off at least probably 10 of these bad boys. So let me just do that. I was kind of hoping this would be, well, in a selfish way, I was kind of hoping this would be much cheaper. I really should have snuck in here on, uh, when did this dip down to? Is that yesterday? Yesterday morning? Something like that. Anyway, yeah, 2 days ago. It must have been Monday morning. If I had snuck down here, I probably could have bought these back a lot cheaper. No big deal. But let me close like 10 of these, and then I will have to make a decision on whether I'm going to use some margin for one day. Not one of them, 10 of them. Let me turn the volume down before I get this fill. There we go. All right, no fill. Let's pay a little bit more for it. All right, so I either have to sell $14,000 worth of shares to not be using margin, or I can just put these positions back on tomorrow. Let me just put the stocks back in here. All right, so my poor man's covered calls, I've got one down here. These are covered. These are covered. And then, oh, so this one I can say is covering this one. So then it looks like these 6 are still extra. So maybe I'll just close them all. So now I'll either have to come up with 20 grand-ish or let that also be margin. Let me put these back together. Wait, not that one. Yeah, is it that one? Yeah, this one. Let's just combine these. I think it's PMCC3. All right, cool. So I am not saying that I'm expecting fireworks today. I would love for fireworks to happen. But over the past year, I've kind of made it my policy not to carry a ton of covered calls over earnings because in case something amazing is revealed, maybe they surprise us with FASB fair market accounting, a quarter early like Tesla did. If we see a huge move up, I just don't want to be covered. A lot of the times you just never know what's going to happen, right? Because we don't know if Bitcoin is going to have a God candle. The 10K candle that we just had in 24 hours was kind of disappointing. It's kind of anticlimactic. Like all it did was like bring us back to where we started. Like I want I want that 10K candle to like take us to all-time highs. I don't want to just like find support and bounce off of support, even though that's always nice. Anytime you can build more support is a good thing. So can't really complain too much, I guess. I don't know. I guess we're retracing again overnight. Anyway, I'm hoping its number go up, and MSTR is a little bit of a slave to Bitcoin's price. So if we get 120, 125 or something, then that's obviously good news for MicroStrategy. And some people follow the seasonal calendars, but I don't know. I'm not pinning my hopes on any of those things. So in general, like 99% of the time, you have no idea what's going to happen. But these binary events, we have earnings 4 times a year, and something could happen. Something may not happen, but something could happen. So I don't want to be, I don't want to have unlimited, or excuse me, my upside limited severely over important binary events. If it was a stock that I wasn't so bullish on, then I just wouldn't care. I'd sell covered calls um, across earnings because I'm not emotionally invested in the stock. But because I'm so bullish on MicroStrategy, I'm just kind of a little bit superstitious about missing out on things that we know are going to happen. We just don't know exactly when they're going to happen. We know that they're going to adopt FASB. They have to adopt it by Q1. They could surprise us and adopt it in Q4. So it just makes me nervous to hold too many covered calls. you can see that dropped my theta um, severely negative. And I kind of was half joking about that free course and charging 5 grand for a free course. Um, because all of the information that I would be providing can just be gotten for free off the internet anyway. And you could you could probably distill the entire course down to net positive theta, because um, if I did structure a course like that, the only hurdle that I would require in order to get the course money back and get a full refund would be demonstrating trades that result in a positive theta. That's it. That would be enough to make me, hand salute and sign off and be like, "Okay, you held your end of the bargain, and here's your full refund. Thank you for your cooperation and not wasting my frickin' time." Um, so really, he uh, you can just not take a frickin' options course and, bookmark that. Right? That's you congratulations, you have graduated from my options course. Does your account have a net positive theta, right? You buy 100 shares, sell a covered call, there's no negative theta on 100 shares, so any covered call that you would sell automatically has positive theta. Congratulations. You're winning. Same thing with cash secured puts. Theta's positive. You're trading unlimited upside for, a guaranteed profit of some amount. The poor man's covered calls are much harder. Let me just do the one and one. So for this one, you can see that the long call that I purchased, I'm losing $10 a day. But the short call that I sold, I am gaining $35 a day. Now, this does not mean that this is a money printer. This is not free money. I'm just saying this is would be demonstrating proof of work if you understand the principles that I trade by. I just simply want more money draining into my account than out of it. Now, I could be wrong on the direction, because if MSTR takes a dump, then theta is going to be kind of meaningless because delta is going to take over, and the value of this $200 call will absolutely collapse way faster than 100 shares. So poor man's covered calls, it's a more efficient use of capital because I can do 2 of these covered call trades for about the same money as it would cost to buy 100 shares. However, that leverage that helps us when the price is going up or staying the same absolutely causes capital destruction when the price is going down. So I will assume that the bear market is going to take over in 2026, and I will not hold any long calls. I'm not going to have any poor man's covered calls. I'm not going to have any of these speculative, out of the money long calls. All of this leverage will be bye bye. By the end of 2025. But yeah, that's kind of like the metric. If you're like, oh, am I doing selling options correctly? Oh, well, is the theta positive? Is more money draining into your account than out of it? Congratulations. That is the option seller's portfolio. That's demonstrating competence, I suppose, in setting up a trade. And it can be call credit spreads. So let's do a put credit spread because that's the bullish one. But let's say I was going to sell the 350, too big, and buy the the 340. That means that I would have $45 of theta draining into my account and 44 draining out. So that's kind of razor thin and it's like, oh, that kind of seems like a waste of time. But um and I wouldn't necessarily open one of these contracts with implied vol this low. Um the best time to sell any option is when implied vol is high, but credit spreads are a little bit more forgiving in that sense to a certain extent because implied vol is going to affect the option that you're buying and selling. So, but still, it still works best when implied vol is high because it's going to affect the strike that's closer to at the money. So you're selling the 350, which is closer to at the money than the option that you're buying at 340. And so implied vol is going to make both of them more expensive, but it's going to make the closer to the at the money one double plus expensive, to use the 1984 newspeak. So any combination of put credit spreads, uh, call credit spreads, that's the bearish one. Poor man's covered calls, cash secured puts. Some people sell, strangles, naked calls, and stuff like that. I do not, but if the position size is relatively small enough, like, I mean, anything is fair game, but they scare me too much, so I don't mess with naked calls. All right, 22 grand. Do I want to sell like what, 50 shares to not be using uh margin? Maybe I'll sell enough shares to cover like half of it. 20 shares? Would that get me 5 grand? 7? Let's do 25 shares. Yeah. I'll hold 14,000 in margin overnight. So first thing in the morning, whenever I trade or do a live stream, I will go ahead and add my covered calls back in, and hopefully MicroStrategy will be pumped. And if the market gods are listening, let me sacrifice a goat or chicken or whatever. I got you covered. All right, the joint account. Let's do something similar. I've got 3 covered calls on, and I've got one of them is against this one. The other 2, one is against shares, so I'm definitely going to close that one. And the other one is against it's kind of like a ratio spread. It's against 3 of these. The delta all total is well over the equivalent of 100 shares. So let me just close one of these. Let's close one of the 350s. Yeah, that's just a tiny, tiny little toe dipped into margin. I'm okay with that, holding that overnight. All right, this is my allowance, and I had been wanting to close this one anyway. I don't think I have this one set up as a margin account, so it's probably not going to let me do this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'm gonna have to, let's see, if I want to spend 600 bucks, I'm gonna have to sell 2 shares, I think. All right, close it. $78. Okay, I like that. You can see my net theta in this one, I think was already negative. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I have nothing like almost exclusively leverage in this account. So you know what? I'm tempted to how many dollars do I have? $78. Tempted to sell the last 2 shares I have. That would give me 690. Nope, that's not enough to get another June. Anyway, nah, never mind. Belay my last. I'm feeling really nautical today. All right, this is my account that I'm trading against Misty. So I already have, let's see, I've got the 6 poor men cover calls here, so I'm not touching those. I've got 300 shares. 2 of them are covered. And this is the weekly one. So I'm closing this one for sure. I don't want any. I don't want any expirations that are that close to expiration to earnings. So 700 bucks. I'm not going to cover all of that, but let's just, well, maybe I will. 700. I'll just sell 2 shares. It's not going to completely cover it. So I'm using a tiny little bit of margin. That's completely fine. All right, the 5K account. I may not be able to do anything with this one because of the margin requirements. I have such a small amount of money. The only thing that I could do to free up some more cash would be to free up this option collateral. So I could close out this CLSK put. That would give me the 900 bucks I need to close out this $500 call. Let me see this. See, I just set this one up. What is this, a 450? Yeah, let's do it. All right, so let me, whoops. All right, let's close the buy to close cash secured put. Let's see if I can get a fill. Nope. What did I sell it for? Okay, so I sold it for 77. I can buy it back for 48. Let's just get this over with. All right, that should give me just enough. Let's see when this updates. Yeah, 1,300 bucks. That should give me enough to be able to close this out and not be dipped into margin. So in this account, I will have 1 long call covered and 1 long call uncovered. Just overnight. I'll put these back. I'll put this back on tomorrow. So let me buy this for 10.10. There we go. Robinhood doesn't really have the same metrics. Like I can't tell if this account is net theta positive or negative, but I'm just kind of guessing it's negative now because I only have 1 of these long calls covered. but that's fine. Just for one night. All right, $290 in cash, not using margin. I'm happy with this. All right, I think that's all the trades for today. Let me get back here and check on this chat again. Oh, I love it. All right, Howard says BUMED used to keep meds in warehouses and test them every so often and send us messages to extend our meds. They probably made it all up. Yeah, no shit. Oh man. I remember I was like in between duty stations and they sent me to Quantico, the Marine base, for a couple of months. And the supply warehouse was just, it was just a mess. And, you know, when you're kind of in between duty stations, they just use you and abuse you. So they sent us all over there to clean up. And we just chucked a shit ton of old expired stuff, but like no bandages, sterile bandages technically expire, but like I mean we just loaded up instead of throwing stuff into the garbage. Like I think I ended up with like 2 or 3 first aid packs full of just bandages and those instant ice packs, and I had these generic ass band-aids. I think that a couple of boxes of those damn things lasted me like 5 years. All right, Danimal says, bro, can you give an overall synopsis of your market sentiment, how it related to selling calls right now versus waiting for a pop? I'm sure you've covered it somewhat in a vid, but can't catch them all. For example, I can tell from Josh's feed that he's still 90% long and trying to capitalize on covered calls during a short dip and chop. I don't have his courage yet, and time is running out on that strat. Yeah. Um, he's definitely, he's like, what was it, White Men Can't Jump, where he said, you listen to Jimmy, but you don't hear Jimmy. Like, I think Josh just hears the market, like fucking Neo or whatever. He just sees the matrix behind the code. Not that he's right all the time, 100% of the time, but um, I just, I just don't. So, as a matter of course, my login expired. I will probably you can almost call it like the option sellers 60/40 portfolio, because the amount of delta that I have in my main account I could probably sell. I mean, my net delta here is like 3,000, so I could probably sell at least 30 or 40. I could probably formulate a poor man's covered call for every single one of these December 530s, even though it's not quite in the money. Like, as long as I sold the 700 strikes or higher, I could probably make that work. So 45 days to expiration. Went to the 700 strike. Yeah, I could get a little something here. So depending on how, if I just didn't care or didn't believe that MicroStrategy was going to have a god candle at some point, I could probably put on like 40 covered call positions on this account. I'd have to structure them all differently. But so I kind of just figured at any given moment, even when IV is low, since I need a positive net theta in order to not just be losing money every day, I kind of figured like 60-40. Like, so if I can do 40, that would be 4 times that, so 24. I can keep 24 covered calls on at any given time and like have the other 16 positions uncovered. And even if a portion of my portfolio had limited upside, there would be enough of my portfolio that had unlimited upside that if we did get a nice rally to 500 again or even higher, that it wouldn't it wouldn't be heartbreaking. Like, oh man, I limited my upside to the 425s and all my shares got called away. It was like, no, only 2/3 of my positions would be covered. Plus, the delta on these long calls would increase as if these go in the money, then the delta on this bad boy is gonna get closer and closer to like 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. So my delta will actually expand as the price goes up. So that's kind of like my baseline that I start with, completely discounting any market conditions whatsoever. Is kind of like, okay, if the implied vol skyrockets, then I will start covering my uncovered positions. Before I kind of really just fell in love with MicroStrategy, I just covered all my positions. I just didn't care. I didn't care if the market sentiment was up, down, or sideways. All I cared about was collecting premium. That was it. So with that being said, I generally don't make any short-term predictions. However, because earnings is a binary event, I'm willing to take a bunch of those positions off, for literally what, 3 hours from 1 to 4, and then as soon as the market opens tomorrow, I can just put those positions back on. So, um, I don't mind tweaking the strategy 4 times a year for earnings, right? Just in case something amazing happens, in case we get some fireworks. But in general, like Bitcoin, let's look at a year. So I'm loving that we kind of have this floor here, right? We can't crack below 90. I love every time we find another support at 90. I'm like, okay, whew. And then we had that rocket back up from, what did it hit, 91 or 92? Yeah, whatever this was. And then boom, there's definitely support here. However, as good news as that is, if 90,000 doesn't hold, there's nothing but frickin' air down to 75, 72, 75, 69. That would be painful as shit. However, I think Josh was talking about Bitcoin hits 84 before we get rocketed back up into the stratosphere. I don't make any of those kinds of predictions. I have no idea. However, I just try to keep my expectations aligned with what could happen. So I hope 90 holds and we never see sub 90 again. But if we do, we're going to see 75, 72, 75. That would be real scary because MicroStrategy would probably crater along with that. But if we did see those kind of prices, my plan would already be like I would just sell like 1,000 shares and I would just dump into way more performance covered calls. So that's how I would react to something like that happening. Yeah, I don't know what kind of tea leaves Josh reads, and I just don't read any really. Jackie says, noob here. Which is the easiest to make money with? Covered call strategy, bull, bear, or sideways chop? Or does it even matter if you know what you're doing? Which is the easiest to make money with? Bull, bear, or sideways? Okay. So all of the option selling strategies, as far as I can tell, are bullish, but they're limited upside bullish. So you're always going to be making the most money you can in a bull market. You always want the price to go up. And so when you say, is it the easiest to make money? So yeah, here's the hard part about that though. So in a bull market, the covered call strategy is going to make more money than the covered call strategy in a sideways market or bear market. So that's why I'm saying bull is always optimal. However, in a bull market, covered call strategy may underperform just buy and hold because I'm selling the 400 strikes. And if we get a nice candle up to 450, then I have limited my upside at 400. However, if we go to 450, this covered call strategy made more money than if the price would have stayed at 350. Because even though I would get to close out my short calls with 100% profit, I don't make any money on the shares or the long calls. So for any bullish strategy, you want to be in a bull market. Trading sideways or down, covered call strategies isn't necessarily going to make you money. It's just going to lose less money than buy and hold. That's the kind of the thing. So with covered calls in a bull market, you may or may not outperform. Covered calls may or may not outperform buy and hold. But in a bear market, covered calls have to outperform buy and hold. It just won't. A bear market simply just won't outperform a bull market. And after having said all of that, I don't know if that made the type of sense that I wanted it to. Yeah, so Danimal's saying that covered call strat works best in bear or chop. Bull is dangerous as your position costs you more to cover as the price rises. Yeah, and so it depends on what you mean by better, outperform, and dangerous, because limiting my upside isn't necessarily dangerous. It's not like you're not going to go broke. You're still making money, but I think what a lot of people mean by that is there's the danger to the upside is underperforming a different strategy. So covered calls in a bull market is still printing money. It just may not be the optimal strategy. it may underperform buy and hold, or just buying long calls and doing nothing but waiting for the price to go up. Dude Face says Misty dividend coming next week. Estimate is between 1 and 3. Okay, that'll be cool. What's Misty trading at? 27. So that would be yeah, if we can get 3, that would be a little over 10% for the month. So that would be cool. I like the way you think, Buffalo. I'm not closing any for earnings, trying to tempt the market gods. I know. Sometimes I feel that way too. It's like, let me set a covered call on here so that the market can wreck it. Dude Face says, okay, I rolled 33 shares into a long call at 340 December 19th and sold a 400 for Friday. Gonna ride the poor man's cover call thing for a bit and try to follow the righteous path. Thank you for the inspiration. Okay, you sold the 400 for Friday. If that 400 is sold against the 340, I don't think that's gonna cover it. So let me know if that's the case, because, well, the formula that I use is this one. For poor man's covered calls, take the short strike, subtract the leap strike, add the call premium, and that should be greater than the cost of the leaps. So if you have the December 340, .68 delta, that's just barely kind of close to being a safe. So the 400 for Friday. Yeah. This is going to be cutting it a little close, I think. Let's see. Yeah. So you might be okay with this, but if the price goes to 630 or higher, you could start losing money on this trade. Now, granted, you could probably just roll it out or close them together, but I mean, if the price went to $1,000 a share, you could potentially get wrecked. Let's just see here. So following that formula, the short strike 400 minus the long strike of 340, that's $60. $60 plus the $100 in premium gets you to $61, and $61 is not greater than the value of this 340. So you to make this kind of fit, it's hard to sell weeklies against poor man's covered calls unless you're extremely deep in the money. You probably have to to sell the 400s. Yeah, you'd have to be like way down here. Maybe even deeper. Because 200 plus 180 only gets you to 381. Yeah, and that's probably decent. So in this case, 400 minus 200 is 200. 201 is greater than 181. So yeah, this would be, you could probably buy like the 225 call maybe and still get away with that. You can see that this slope on this green is much lower, and there's no red on this chart. So your poor man's covered call makes me a little bit nervous, just because if we get a rapid rise to 450, 500, 650, something like that, I mean, that would be awesome. But you could be exposed to a little bit of unlimited risk there. What was 340 worth? 340 is 112. So you'd probably have to go to like the 450 strike to be super safe with that. I don't think there's much profit to be, it's not even worth putting on at 450, which is why, my 450s are out to March, because you can get $1,500 instead of $50. It's much easier to form a poor man's covered call using the 45 days to expiration short strike, because it makes the premium that you collect meaningful. So, not financial advice, but I follow this little go by here to make sure that my poor man's covered calls are formed quote unquote safely. All right, Anthony says, I'm wondering why you sell 8 at the money. Wouldn't this immediately put you at risk of being assigned? Yes. So even though I'm a disciple of the Tasty Trade strategy, which according to their research, for out of the money options, selling at 45 days to expiration is optimal for the theta curve. Theta starts accelerating at like 90 days, keeps accelerating, and their kind of sweet spot starts at 45 days to expiration, lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks, and it's not that theta stops accelerating after those 2 to 3 weeks, but gamma starts to become a risk. So that's when they kind of like book as much of their profits as they can in 2 to 3 weeks and then roll back out to 45 days to capture the same theta acceleration with less gamma risk. So you can see all of my poor man's covered calls. All my poor man's covered calls are out of the money, and they are um, close to 45 days expiration. So there's only 30 left on this one, but I opened it 9 days ago. However, I had that one in this account, right? Which account did I have? I think it was this account here. Yeah. So I had, I thought it was that one. No. My trading account. Yeah, there we go. So I had this one that I sold at the money 5 days ago. So that was probably Friday. If I'm going to sell a weekly, I generally, so that research that I was talking about that Tasty Trade has for out of the money options and 45 days of expiration, if it's 1 week to expiration, all of that research is out the window. That doesn't apply. So I just go ahead and sell close to at the money if I'm doing weeklies. I can build a little bit of call away value in there if I want. I can absolutely do that. I can put 10, 20% out of the money. Everything is a trade-off. So exactly what you said is correct. If I'm selling the 345, it's a 50, it's basically a coin flip of getting wrecked on that trade. But the money that I can collect is so much higher that you just have to decide what you're willing to accept in that trade-off. Risk of assignment for collecting more money, or less guaranteed money up front, $100 versus less callaway risk. So everything is a trade-off. There's no solution to the problem of having, risking your assignment, right? Because even this one seems like super safe. It's a 0.07 delta, but still that's like 1 out of every 13 weeks you're probably going to get your shares called away. So you're going to be risking assignment eventually, kind of, like no matter what you do. So it's a risk reward proposition. What's up, Scott? Dude Face says, okay, I'm a bit new to the poor man's covered call. That's your weak spot. I was thinking a bit more ad hoc. Okay. Yeah. And so let me just put this in here as well. If you want to research up on the poor man's covered call formula that I like. So I don't know if you're trolling. Sailor just announced a rebrand. MicroStrategy is now Strategy. Is that for real? They got to change their ticker to STRT. All right, so we're all caught up on the chats. Let me see. Is there anything else to talk about? I don't think so. So I registered for the, I think Adrian and Tim both post links to the earnings call. I don't know if you have to register in order to be able to join the earnings call, but anyway, I clicked and put my email address in there. So we'll see. Fingers crossed, hoping that number go up technology is in full swing. So be good, y'all.